Thank you for joining us for the second day of Innovation Zero. Thank you for coming to the green stage. Before I announce our next session, just a technical detail that this year Innovation Zero is taking up a gear, and we want to see action, we want to see problems being solved, and we want to see change. And to make that happen, we're the first event in the world to partner with a truly game-changing new startup, Ideonomy. The Innovation Zero Ideonomy is a collaborative innovation community that will bring people together across sectors to solve problems supported by machine learning and AI. So you will see QR codes dotted around the event, and you can submit, view, and rank the most important problems across each forum. And this will create a prioritized list of problems so we know where to focus our joint innovation efforts. After the event, we'll set up a series of new problem-solving teams where you can meet people who can share the same problem as you, and we'll then connect problem owners with the solution providers so we can solve problems together and drive positive change. So yeah, please scan the QR codes to get going. And our session is Collaboration for Net Zero, the Power of Partnerships. And yeah, over to our moderator, Judith, Cruikshank, Regional Managing Director at Royal Bank of Scotland. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our panel, Collaboration for Net Zero, the Power of Partnerships. My name is Judith Cruikshank. I'm the Managing Director of the Commercial Mid-Market Business for Royal Bank of Scotland, part of the NatWest Group. At NatWest, we know that climate change is one of the biggest challenges that we face today. And we want to help our customers, UK businesses, whom we serve 1 in 4 of, to help transition to a net zero economy. And that's both by getting hold of the opportunities that will come from a transition to net zero, but also by mitigating the risks of climate on their businesses and making sure that they're here and able to thrive into the future. But we know from experience with our customers how complex this journey will be, and it's only by collaborating and through the power of partnerships that we will be able to get there and help our businesses transition to net zero by 2050. So that's why I'm delighted to be able to host today's panel, really focusing on why collaboration is key and what it takes to make collaborations a success. And who better to join me on the panel than one of my NatWest colleagues and 2 of our partners that we have worked with to bring solutions to our customers. So from NatWest, we have Maria Carvalho, Head of Climate Economics and Data from our Climate Centre of Excellence. Maria's team developed the climate strategy for the bank and identify where and how we need to partner to deliver that strategy. From Sage Earth, we have George Sandilands, the Sage Earth VP and global tech entrepreneur. And we've collaborated with Sage Earth on our carbon planner tool, which you'll hear more about. And then from Ayvens, we have global deputy CEO John Saffrett. And we've collaborated with Ayvens through our asset finance arm, Lombards, to deliver a transport solution for our customers. So thank you all for joining me. Let's start by exploring the 2 partnerships that I have touched on. So John, from our partnership between Lombard and yourselves at Ayvens, customers can get access to a full range of vehicle funding, from vehicle supply all the way through to in-life management, to help them transition their fleets to electric vehicles. Can you tell us more about how that partnership supports the businesses to transform in the near term?
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Judith, and thank you for inviting us onto the panel. The good thing with the situation we're facing is that everyone feels compelled to act already. So we're not having to persuade people to transition their fleets to electric vehicles. There's a demand in the client base to do it. However, it's very complicated. It's very complicated because these vehicles are very expensive. And even though we expect the prices to come down over time, there's still the challenges of taxation, legislation, charging, which drivers can use electric vehicles tomorrow and not have any impact on their daily lives, and which ones you may need to delay that decision a bit further down the line. So what we do through the partnership is we bring consulting, we bring advice, we bring knowledge, we bring a full range of offers covering all of the OEMs that are available on the market, and we're able to advise the clients on which drivers should transition at which point and what vehicles they should be driving and what the cost impact taken into account all of that taxation legislation is going to look like, both for the corporate and for the driver themselves.
Great. And how has the partnership unlocked a new capability or solution that we weren't able to do, I guess, on our individual merits?
Yeah, well, I mentioned before, there's taxation and legislation has been one of the key drivers in the transition to electric vehicles, and salary sacrifice schemes have become very popular as a way of encouraging employers to offer their employees a path to electrification, but in a very tax efficient and cost efficient manner, because you're paying for the cars out of gross salary and you're benefiting from very low benefit in kind ratings by the government. So we've recently launched the full digital platform through the partnership. So it's been something the clients have been demanding for a long time. It's now available. We've already secured the first clients on the platform, and I got told by the team at the back of the room we took our first orders today as well on the platform. So we think it's going to be a great solution for our clients going forward, and we're very excited about what it will bring to our clients and to ourselves.
Yeah, I felt like I was leading the witness a bit there, because I know from experience of talking to our businesses that salary sacrifice was the biggest blocker that we were facing. So I'm really excited about getting out to the businesses that had that as the issue. So looking forward, as businesses continue to demand more flexible, multimodal solutions for transport, how do you see the partnership continuing to evolve?
Well, Ayvens is, we're based in 44 countries, and we manage a fleet of around 3.5 million vehicles across those countries. So we tend to develop new products and services in the markets which are most receptive to them initially, test them in those markets, and then roll them out into other markets. So, for example, in Italy, we run a corporate car sharing platform, which enables the sharing of the company cars that would sit in the company car park all day to be used by all employers, mostly for intersite trips. We run a flexible fleet of around 200,000 vehicles across Europe, which are available for short-term leasing and people that don't need a car full-time, but where you have an interim employee, we can enable that as well. And finally, we have a product called Ayvens Move, which is a multimodality solution, which allows an employer to allocate a mobility budget to an employee and can, more importantly, control where they spend that mobility budget to ensure they're spending it on greener methods of transport. So, for example, it will make the Uber service available, but you can only book Uber Green through that solution. And it will make rental services available, but you can only rent electric vehicles through that solution as well. And it provides a real clear view of how they're driving down the carbon footprint of the company as well. So what we do is, as we experiment with those and as the market demand comes in local markets, we bring those solutions. So I fully anticipate we'll bring a number of those solutions into the UK market in the near future. And I'm sure the partnership will be very well placed to offer those to the clients as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And you talked obviously about the importance of businesses being able to demonstrate that their carbon footprint is reducing, which brings us very nicely over to George and our partnership with Sage Earth. So NatWest and Sage Earth teamed up on Carbon Planner, which is our free digital tool to help UK businesses understand their carbon footprint and develop an action plan to reduce it. George, can you tell me how the expertise that Sage Earth have brought into Carbon Planner has helped businesses move forward?
Sure thing. So great to be here. A little bit of background. So previously we were a startup called Sperix. We built a tool that helps small businesses to decarbonize. And right at the same sort of time, NatWest were working on Carbon Planner, and we really realized at that early stage that instead of actually working in two silos and competing, it would be much more beneficial to draw our expertise together, to work out where we're better placed in the kind of customer journey, and actually draw that into a collaboration. That collaboration continued. We were actually acquired by Sage, so now I lead up carbon accounting at Sage, and that's really exciting because Sage have got sort of 2 million small business customers globally. So there's a huge opportunity to actually roll out tooling within our ecosystem. But similarly, NatWest, large business, I think 19 million business customers, something along those lines, huge opportunity to roll out the tooling both to existing customers and to other organizations. But in terms of where we sort of best best work together. I think what became clear is, we as a business, both Sage Earth, we're really focused on measurement. So we're really focused on accounting, HR, payroll. That's like core business, and for us, focusing on getting the accounting of the carbon done as effective as possible is our expertise. NatWest are really well suited to deploy lots of capital to these businesses who need finance to fund the actions and the mitigation sort of activity that they're going to take to actually go on that journey of decarbonisation. So there was a real good realisation that actually we're sort of like almost right on the start of the journey. NatWest are actually in that kind of action piece. Like, so we're the kind of get your report, understand where you are today. NatWest much more in the kind of what are you actually going to do about it? How can we help? So we kind of teamed up and we've built a kind of cross-functional climate science team to actually support users on that journey through the Carbon Planner product.
And how has the partnership evolved over the 3 years that we've been working together?
Well, so it started really with us providing accounting platform connectors. So if you think about, if you're a small business and you're trying to measure your footprint, you can do that with consultants and you can do it manually. There's lots of tools out there that kind of help in principle. But the great thing that we kind of added to the NatWest Carbon Planner was moving from just a purely kind of question and answer system to one that takes a data feed from where the data lives within that small business and actually automate the flow of the calculation methodology. So it was about saving customers time, saving them effort, and making it more accurate, especially with regards to what's called Scope 3 emissions, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, but for those of you that aren't, it's the emissions that are beyond the operational boundary control, both upstream and downstream within your kind of your value chain. So we're sort of really concentrating on how we can help make it as simple and easy and accessible as possible.
Great. And are you able to share what's next for the partnership?
Really exciting things on the horizon. Yeah, I mean, sort of word of the moment, AI. Like we're collaborating on ways that we can use large language models, use machine learning to actually automate a lot. Whatever is possible within the measurement side of things. Within the action, similarly, building out action plans that are industry specific, region specific, targeted help towards the businesses that need it. Where they are. Lots of really exciting stuff coming out.
Thank you. So Maria, from NatWest's perspective, can you talk to us about what NatWest are looking for when we're approaching a potential partner to work on with a solution?
That's a really good question, and it's been amazing. So I joined NatWest 2 years ago, and it really honed in on me on the importance of partnerships. So critically, the way we think about it is customers and being very customer focused. For customers, there's two things that we've seen are massive blocks. One is it's not just financing, it's just that the solutions are not as accessible. Customers may not know what they need to do in order to invest with the transition. What's the most important things and what are the costs of that? Is there people out there who can help them with the advice that they need? And then is the technology and the supply chain there for it actually to be deliverable? So like when we think about how do we approach partnerships, it's actually how do you make it as easy as for a customer to actually invest into the transition by getting access to the solution, getting the advice that they need, and it's just done in one seamless integration.
Great. And can you share some information of some of the other partnerships that we have at NatWest?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I described it, the Sustainable Homes and Buildings Coalition is a really good example of that. And in fact, like in some ways, we have to acknowledge for a lot of our customers, there's two things that stop them from taking action on climate. One is that the business case isn't there for them, and you have to really think about why is that business case not there? Is it because the policies and markets and regulations aren't there? They don't have access to the subsidies and things like that. So for those kinds of things, as an example of the Sustainable Homes and Buildings Coalition, it was really bringing commercial partners, so Worcester Bosch, Centrica, Citizens, and Shelter, to take a customer focus in terms of how do you walk through that customer journey to see when it comes to home retrofits, like really thinking that through. And what was amazing from those 2 years of partnership of walking through what is a home retrofit. So we sponsored the home retrofits for 9 different homes across the UK. And that provided so many lessons about what that seamless integration would need. But it also threw up lessons to governments and policy. These are the types of policies that we need to enable that to occur. What's amazing about what started off as a policy advocacy and walkthrough, basically thought advocacy, actually has now changed into a commercial partnership. So with those same sets of players, we thought of what does that seamless integration need to look like, and we have Home Energy Hub. So it's amazing to see how partnerships can evolve through understanding and really understanding from a customer point of view, what do we need to address then to make it as easy as possible, then you can create a seamless integration.
Great, thank you. And I guess taking that same question to you, John, and then George, around the other areas that you're partnering to drive transition to net zero, if you can share 1 or 2 examples.
Well, I mean, it's very interesting listening to Maria, because you have to start with the customer, and if you're going to create a partnership, it has to create something new or different or value creating for the customer. Otherwise, there's no value in the partnership. It also has to create value for both the partners involved in it as well. So it's a win-win-win needs to be in place before you do it. We partner with a number of the OEMs in Europe to bring their product to market. We've been very successful with exclusive partnerships with people like Tesla, Smart, Polestar, BYD in some markets. So really supporting the accessibility of BEV through a number of channels, through SME and private individuals and large corporates to try to accelerate that. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but we also collaborate with some other banks in other countries, hasten to add, but with people like BBVA in Spain, Nordea in the Nordics, and a few others. And that's simply because they offer an access to a client and a client relationship, which can just be a facilitator to making the product available quicker and more efficiently than if we decided to go to a market ourselves. Yeah. And there's a value for all the parties in doing that.
Great. And George?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I guess more, if you step back, net zero means every business. There is no net zero state if some businesses are net zero and some are not. Every business lies in every other business's value chain. So the whole principle of net zero is underpinned by collaboration. We absolutely need everybody to work together, including, you know, the petrochemical giants. Like there's huge challenges in actually going on this journey. I might call out a couple of sort of collaborations that we're involved with in the UK. There's the Broadway initiative. They've recently launched just over there the UK net zero census. So they're asking every business, where are you on this net zero journey? How are you getting on? We fully support that. So just call out to anyone who's in a business. If you're, you know, large, small, whatever, get involved in that. That would be great. And more broadly, the Broadway initiative underpin the UK Business Climate Hub, of which again we're a sponsoring party, as I believe NatWest are as well. And another one is Bankers for Net Zero. So there's an initiative called Perseus, which is a really interesting project, a very technical project. And this is about how can we collaborate as an industry to automate emissions data flows across businesses. And this particular project starts with Scope 2 emissions. So this is looking at electricity specifically. And what they're trying to do is through policy frameworks, so working very closely with both the government and industry, is to actually support the utilities providers in opening up the data that's needed to organizations like us, like Carbon Planner, so that we can serve that up straight into a customer's emissions activity, rather than having to take it from reading bills or getting the users to actually input this data. So partnerships like that whilst they're almost like pre-commercial, because I think, you know, starting with a customer absolutely makes sense. But at the same time, sometimes there's some things behind the scenes or sort of policy instruments that are needed to actually open it up and make it as easy as possible for these small businesses who are really struggling on this journey. You know, it's a really hard thing. Net zero is still quite existential in places.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And so we've had some really good examples of collaboration and where it's gone well and how it's brought value to all of the parties, but it's not always straightforward. And we might get there in the end. But what challenges have you seen when collaborating with others? Maria, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I actually think it's about recognizing how both organizations are on their journey and what their ambitions are in moving forward. And then there actually does come a time when where both sides want to go isn't quite aligning and no longer is the value proposition there. And so that's a really important point that John made, is that both partners have to have a shared vision, shared sets of capabilities that complement each other. There may come a point where you've achieved one set of milestones, but the question is afterwards, are you on that same agreement of where you want to focus your energies? And when that doesn't happen, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I would say that one of the key lessons we've learned is to make sure that there's a continuous notion of how we want to deploy solutions. Notice the wonderful thing about that was actually, it's one of the great things about partnership management is recognizing that you may be on different trajectories. You're complementing each other, but where you want to put the resources is a bit different, and that makes sense.
John?
Well, I think it starts with the people, actually, because I think whenever you go through a partnership process, you assess a number of suppliers, and I've sat in front of a number of people that are looking at what we do, and they start with price. And I'm very honest, and I say, look, if you want me to put the cheapest price down on paper in my presentation, I can do it. But actually, I think you should make decision on whether you think we're the right people to work with to start off with, because partnerships always have up and downs, and the downs are when you really test the partnership. And if there isn't that connection with the people where you feel like you're looking yourself in the eye and you're sharing those values and sharing the spirit of what you're trying to do, very quickly the partnership changes. So we really base our partnership on, do we think we're going to work together well in the bad times? And we actively tell the partner, if you don't like us, please don't work with us, because it's not going to work and it will just be painful for both parties. So we try to focus on that, and that generally seems to be the category or the criteria for whether a partnership works or not in our space.
I firstly completely agree with the people side of things. I think it all does start with the team and how you work together as an organisation. I think stepping back from one particular partnership across, one thing that we're seeing in the space is there's a huge need or challenge in the industry working together more collaboratively, and certainly in what we do, which is broadly kind of carbon accounting, decarbonisation, focused on small businesses, but it would be the same whether it was for a large business. There's a lot of competition on things which should be pre-competitive. Mm-hmm. So climate science is currently competitive. Companies go out and say, we are the best climate science, so work with us. That should not be the area we are competing. We should have industry standardization, we should have really clear framework, and we should be competing on customer value, delivery, how it's done. So I think, to your point around some of the challenges is we're in a space where there's an awful lot of noise. There's in places organizations that have some credibility or others, and we're in the same bracket. We're playing this kind of competitive game. Work with Carbon Planner, it's a really credible tool. It is. I'll just add, but there's a lot of challenge, and part of the reason why, alongside commercial partnerships like the ones with NatWest, we're very, very supportive of all the industry-wide partnerships that are going on, the government-led stuff, the industry-led stuff, and similarly, if there's any partners out there who kind of want to collaborate, please reach out. We're very open, and I think what's going to be needed really is as I said, coalescing of the science so that we can move forward and support customer needs.
Yeah, we often say at NatWest, climate is a team sport.
Absolutely.
And I guess on that point of competition, so while you're right, there are areas we shouldn't be competing on around climate if we're going to get to net zero, we do still have competitors in the broader sense. Would you collaborate with a direct competitor for that to be each you?
Yes. 100%. I think we have to.
It's going to make it hard for everyone else to say no now.
Yeah, I mean, we are trying to right now. That we are. I'm meeting with Normative tomorrow, who are a sort of enterprise organisation. There's lots of conversations going on around in the industry. Certainly within carbon accounting, there's recently the Carbon Accounting Alliance, which was founded by Andrew Griffiths from Planet Mark. They launched, I think there's now 375 organizations within the Carbon Accounting Alliance, which is amazing. But if you think there's 375 organizations telling their clients something slightly different, putting their boundary in slightly different places, and everybody saying they're the best, it's quite an interesting space to actually kind of come together. But it is happening. We are trying. And I think these kind of partnerships, large organizations getting together saying, we're going to work together on this. Let's show the industry and let's try and be transparent with our methodology, etc. That's certainly a good start.
John, areas you would...
I have to be a little bit careful because we've just done an acquisition last year and the European Commission analysed it very carefully to make sure we didn't contravene any. But I think, there's a lot of... The nature of our industry is sometimes corporates use 2 or 3 different leasing suppliers or financing suppliers, and we've all got our own reporting platforms and we've all got our own proprietary data, and actually it's a nightmare for the clients because if we don't make that data available to their platform of choice, and ideally I'd like it to be mine, but it's not always going to be mine, then I really create a headache for them. So I think in the areas particularly around carbon reporting and emissions reporting and vehicle data reporting, we're trying to make sure that that data is readily available for the clients to use as they need to, even if it means putting that data into a competitor's platform in order to analyze it and process it.
Can I just jump in, actually? I think one other thing on the carbon reporting, and this is something that's coming in the Carbon Planner product in the sort of months and years ahead, is making it interoperable. Yeah. So whether you use Carbon Planner or not, making sure that the data that you've got can actually be exported into whatever other organization systems that are needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely needed, especially for smaller businesses that just don't have the resources to be doing multiple systems, multiple entry. Right, coming back on the competitive point, from a banking perspective, what's the view on collaborating with direct competitors?
I mean, it's what we have to do for the same reasons on standardization and also guidance on how financial institutions need to respond to net zero. So and we actually are collaborating. So there's the Glasgow Financial Alliance on net zero, there's the Transition Planning Task Force, there's Partnership on Carbon Accounting, there's plenty of things and alliances, which is basically in their different shapes and forms, is how does a financial institutions actually respond to supporting our customers to net zero? What are the governance mechanisms that need to be put in place? And what we've seen for the same reasons is that what I would say like 5 years ago, when a lot of both financial institutions and large corporates saying we're adopting a net zero target, maybe that's 2019. 2019 was the renaissance of the net zero. They meant such different things. Yeah. And it was, and what that actually invites is a lot of civil society, rightly, and holding us to account about exactly what you mean by net zero. And that's where actually coming together and thinking about what exactly does that ambition need to look like? How do we communicate in such a way that's credible? This is not really important, not just important for civil society, but shareholders and also the Bank of England and a lot of central banks. Into really thinking about, we play a very fundamental role in how we support the broader economy. Really thinking through what are the ways in which we can ensure we manage the risk for our shareholders, for our customers, and for the solutions that we want to support. It really requires that kind of collaborative thinking. Otherwise, you will get a lot of noise, and the problem has been we wasted a lot of time on noise.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so I always like to finish on a positive and a bit of a call to action. So I'm going to ask each of you to share 2 very succinct, because we're running out of time, views with everyone. Firstly, what best practice have you seen outside of your own world where collaboration has driven great outcomes for customers? And secondly, what do you see as the greatest opportunity for collaboration across sectors and supply chains to help drive the transition to net zero? George, I'll come to you first.
I might ask what the second question was again.
Okay. Greatest opportunity for new collaboration.
Greatest opportunity.
So it's best practice and greatest opportunity.
I mean, so great example. So UK supermarkets have come together. I'm going to be very specific to what we do, but there's a real standard. I'm just going to talk about data, really. For me, data is the challenge and the answer. So a good example is UK supermarkets have relatively recently come together to standardize their reporting requirements going out to suppliers. So one of the challenges that all small businesses are facing right now is you get hit if you work with a bunch of different large corporates. One is saying, oh, I want the data in this framing. Another saying it's this. They've all come together to coalesce around a single framework. That's a great example of collaboration. And then, what can be done? More of the same. Coalescing on data, making it as simple and easy as possible.
John?
I have a pretty boring life. I don't know much about industries outside my own, unfortunately, but I think the best example of collaboration I know is what I'm seeing in the charging space, because charging is one of the big anxieties around owning an electric vehicle. And I think what you're seeing is all of the charge point operators have moved their position from 3-4 years ago of we want to keep our network closed to opening up their network and having an interoperability and a roaming on their network, very similar to what we saw with mobile phones 20 years ago. And it really provides much more comfort to people that they're going to have the convenience of accessing a charging station regardless of what badge is on it. In terms of opportunities going forward, I quite like the model of banks working with specialist companies that bring specialist skills. If I go back 15, 20 years ago, banks sometimes wanted to develop everything themselves, and they weren't ever as good as it as the specialists. And I think if banks such as NatWest and other banks continue to operate on a partnership model where they bring in the best in the areas they want to develop rather than build it themselves, then it helps everyone get there a lot quicker and a lot more efficiently and probably a lot cheaper as well than developing it themselves.
Great. Marianne?
If I were to think about other industries, I actually think the telecoms industry is a wonderful example of a lot of different things coming together to enable digital. I know we're talking about net zero, but like the future economy is also very digital, and understanding those ecosystems of players that have actually created disruptions, right? Yeah. So in some ways, I was reflecting on this on Apple when it came out with the iPhone and an app, and that notion of an app on the iPhone. Did it ever recognize the ecosystem of things that now come? How much of our services are run out of apps? How does it change it? So I find those are those types of collaborations where they have a vision of what the future world can be and really have been transformative. In terms of where I think, where I'd love to see big plays is where grid solutions and EV really come together. So you ultimately are thinking about how to take out fossil fuels from energy consumption, whether it comes to your electricity, your heat, or your mobility. Just ways in which a lot of that can create a really great customer proposition.
Thank you. That went fast, which I didn't think it would. So thank you everyone for joining what was hopefully a very interesting discussion. I feel like we could have spent at least that same time again on it. If you do want to know more either about any of the solutions that we've talked about, the partnerships with Ayvens and Sage, or any of the other work that we're doing at NatWest to support businesses to transition, we're here today on stage 29. So you can come, stand 29. They're not 29 stages. You can come and speak to us there. Both John and George will be down at the stand as well if you've got any questions for them. I know we have to move out of here, but we will be around for a while, so come and see us. And with that, can I ask you just to say thank you to all of the panelists today?